In the upscale Pacific Heights neighborhood of San Francisco, the Morgan family appeared to have it all. James Morgan, 35, was a successful real estate developer known for transforming neglected properties into luxury apartments. His wife Maya, 32, was a beloved kindergarten teacher at a prestigious private school. Their Tudor-style home, with its sweeping views of the bay, seemed to epitomize the American dream. They were like something out of a magazine, recalled neighbor Susan Chen, always impeccably dressed, throwing these amazing dinner parties. Their Christmas decorations alone made our street famous on Instagram. Maya and James had met at Howard University 12 years earlier. She was studying education, he was pursuing his business degree. Their romance was the stuff of campus legend, the star quarterback falling for the quiet bookworm who tutored underprivileged kids on weekends. James pursued me for months, Maya would later tell investigators. He'd leave poetry in my campus mailbox and send flowers to my dorm. When he proposed at graduation, in front of everyone, it felt like a fairy tale. The couple moved to San Francisco in 2015 when James landed a job with a prestigious development firm. Within 3 years, he had started his own company, Morgan Development Group, specializing in luxury renovations in historically Black neighborhoods. James had this vision of creating beautiful spaces that honored the community's history while providing modern amenities, said Marcus Thompson, his former business partner. He wanted to show that urban development didn't have to mean gentrification. Maya found her calling teaching at the prestigious Presidio Day School, where her innovative teaching methods and warm personality made her a favorite among students and parents alike. Mrs. Morgan just had this gift, said Patricia Williams, a parent. My daughter was struggling with reading, and Maya stayed after school 3 days a week until Sophie caught up. That's just who she was, always giving more than required. In January 2023, after trying for several years, Maya discovered she was pregnant. The news sent ripples of joy through their social circle. James immediately began converting their home office into a nursery, painting the walls himself on weekends. Maya was glowing, remembered her best friend Tasha Robinson. And James, he was like a kid at Christmas. Started reading all these parenting books, downloading baby apps. They were so ready to be parents. But beneath the perfect surface, cracks were forming. James had begun working longer hours, often not returning home until well after midnight. He blamed it on a major development project in the Fillmore district, but Maya noticed changes in his behavior. He was always on his phone, but would turn it face down when I came near, Maya later told police. Started password protecting everything. When I asked about it, he'd get defensive, say I didn't trust him. The project keeping James late was real. A $50 million renovation of a historic jazz club and the surrounding block. The legal complexities required frequent meetings with the company's attorney, Derek Washington. Derek, 40, was everything James admired. Harvard law graduate, sharp dresser, with a corner office in the financial district. He'd moved to San Francisco from Atlanta 5 years earlier, leaving behind a failed marriage and building a reputation as one of the city's top real estate attorneys. Derek had this way about him, said his legal assistant, Janet Chen. He could charm anyone, judges, opposing counsel, city officials, but there was something calculating underneath the charm. What no one knew was that Derek was harboring 2 secrets. He was HIV positive and deeply closeted. He managed his status with medication, maintaining an undetectable viral load, but told no one outside his doctors about his diagnosis. The late-night meetings between James and Derek gradually evolved into drinks at discreet bars, then dinners at out-of-the-way restaurants. By March 2023, they were meeting regularly at Derek's luxury apartment in Russian Hill. I knew I was playing with fire, James would later confess to investigators. But Derek understood me in a way no one else did. He knew what it was like to live behind a mask. Maya, now in her 2nd trimester, tried to ignore her growing suspicions. She threw herself into preparing for the baby, attending prenatal yoga classes and decorating the nursery. But her body was sending alarming signals. I was so tired all the time, beyond normal pregnancy fatigue, Maya recalled. Had these persistent night sweats, kept losing weight instead of gaining it. My doctor was concerned. At her 20-week checkup in May 2023, Maya's obstetrician, Dr. Sarah Chen, ordered a comprehensive blood panel, including an HIV test, standard protocol for pregnant women in California. The results would shatter their perfect world forever. On May 15, 2023, Dr. Chen's office called Maya, asking her to come in immediately. Something in the nurse's voice made Maya's stomach drop. She called James, but his phone went straight to voicemail. He was in what he claimed was an important meeting with Derek. Maya's sister Angela, a nurse at UCSF Medical Center, offered to accompany her to the appointment. The sisters sat in Dr. Chen's office, holding hands as the doctor delivered the devastating news. Maya had tested positive for HIV. "I remember the room starting to spin," Maya later told counselors. "Angela was asking questions, but all I could hear was this roaring in my ears. I kept thinking about the baby, our baby." Dr. Chen explained that with immediate treatment, they could significantly reduce the risk of transmission to the baby. But Maya needed to start antiretroviral therapy right away, and they needed to test James as soon as possible. Maya just sat there, completely still, Angela recalled. Then she whispered, "But I've only ever been with James." That evening, when James finally came home, Maya was sitting in the dark nursery, surrounded by stuffed animals and half-assembled furniture. She didn't speak, just handed him the test results. He read them 3 times, Maya told investigators. Then he started crying, saying he was sorry that he never meant for this to happen. That's when I knew. He already knew he was positive. The truth came out in pieces over the next few hours. Yes, James had tested positive 6 weeks earlier during a routine physical. Yes, he knew how he got it. And yes, he had continued having unprotected sex with Maya even after his diagnosis. "I was in denial," James later claimed. "I told myself that since I felt fine, maybe the test was wrong. I couldn't face what I'd done." But he still wasn't telling the whole truth. When Maya demanded to know who else he'd been with, James invented a story about a one-night stand with a woman at a business conference in Las Vegas. Maya might have believed him, except for one detail. James's phone buzzed during their conversation with a text from Derek that read, "We need to talk about protection going forward." Maya grabbed the phone before James could stop her. As she scrolled through their messages, the full picture emerged. James and Derek had been having an affair for months. The late-night meetings were actually rendezvous at Derek's apartment. The business trips often hadn't involved any business at all. "I threw up right there in the nursery," Maya recalled. "Not just because of the affair, but because of the lies. All those months he'd been risking my life, our baby's life, while playing house with Derek." When confronted, James broke down completely. He admitted that Derek had disclosed his HIV status early in their relationship, but they had decided to engage in unprotected sex anyway, with Derek assuring James that his undetectable viral load made transmission unlikely. "Derek told me it was practically impossible for him to infect anyone," James told police. "I wanted to believe him because I was falling in love with him, but I knew I should have told Maya as soon as I tested positive. I just couldn't face destroying everything." The next few days passed in a blur of medical appointments and legal consultations. Maya moved in with her sister Angela, filing for both divorce and criminal charges against James. Her medical team started her on an aggressive antiretroviral regimen to protect both her and the baby. The story exploded across San Francisco's tight-knit Black professional community. James's business partners quickly distanced themselves, and several major projects were put on hold. The Presidio Day School placed Maya on paid medical leave, though parents flooded her with messages of support. Derek, meanwhile, seemed to vanish. His law firm announced his immediate resignation for personal reasons, and he stopped responding to calls and messages from both James and investigators. But the real shock came when police began digging deeper into Derek's past. As Detective Lisa Washington of the San Francisco Police Department's Special Victims Unit began investigating, a disturbing pattern emerged. Derek Washington wasn't just a successful attorney with a secret life. He was potentially a serial predator. "We found at least 3 other men in the Bay Area who claimed Derek had sexual relationships with them without disclosing his HIV status," Detective Washington explained. "All of them were married men, all African-American professionals, all with a lot to lose if their sexuality became public knowledge." One victim, a prominent Oakland pastor who requested anonymity, came forward with a chilling story. Derek approached me at a fundraising gala in 2021. He knew I was married, knew I was deeply closeted. He used that knowledge like a weapon, promising discretion while slowly pulling me into a relationship. When I finally tested positive, he ghosted me. The investigation revealed that Derek had been diagnosed with HIV in 2018 while still practicing law in Atlanta. He'd moved to San Francisco shortly after, leaving behind similar allegations from two former clients. He targeted men who matched a specific profile, explained Dr. Marcus Johnson, a forensic psychologist consulted on the case. Successful black men in their 30s and 40s, usually married, often struggling with their sexuality. He offered them understanding and acceptance, then used their fear of exposure to maintain control. Meanwhile, Maya's pregnancy was becoming high risk. The stress of the situation, combined with the side effects of her HIV medication, led to several hospitalizations. I'd wake up at night feeling like I couldn't breathe, Maya shared. Not just from the physical symptoms, but from the weight of everything. Every kick from the baby reminded me of what James had done to us. The local black community rallied around Maya. Church members delivered meals. Her students' parents organized a fundraiser to help with medical bills. Her sister Angela took indefinite leave from her nursing job to help care for her. We weren't going to let her go through this alone, Angela stated firmly. Our community takes care of its own. James, facing both criminal charges and civil lawsuits, cooperated fully with investigators. He provided all his communications with Derek, including texts that proved Derek had knowingly exposed multiple partners to HIV without disclosure. "I'm not trying to excuse what I did," James told prosecutors. "I betrayed my wife, my unborn child, everything I claimed to believe in." But Derek, he knew exactly what he was doing. He picked his targets carefully, used our shame against us. In July 2023, police finally located Derek at a small hotel in Palm Springs. Rather than face arrest, he attempted suicide by overdosing on sleeping pills. He survived but spent several weeks in a psychiatric facility before being extradited back to San Francisco. The arrest made national headlines, forcing conversations about several uncomfortable topics: HIV disclosure laws, homophobia in the black community, and the vulnerability of closeted men to predatory behavior. "This case isn't just about HIV exposure," said Reverend Michael Thompson, a prominent civil rights activist. "It's about how shame and stigma create perfect conditions for abuse. When we force people to hide who they are, we make them targets." Maya's story particularly resonated with other women who discovered their husbands' secret lives through HIV diagnosis. Support groups formed specifically for wives in similar situations, with Maya eventually becoming an reluctant spokesperson for their cause. "I never wanted this platform," she said during one support group meeting. "But if sharing my story helps one other woman ask the right questions or get tested in time, then maybe some good can come from this nightmare." As summer turned to fall, Maya's due date approached. The medical team was cautiously optimistic. Her viral load had dropped significantly with treatment, reducing the risk of transmission to the baby. But the emotional wounds showed no signs of healing. October 2023 brought two major events: Derek Washington's arraignment and the birth of Maya's daughter. Derek faced multiple felony charges, including intentionally exposing others to HIV without disclosure, criminal negligence, and fraud. The district attorney's office had built a strong case, with 6 victims willing to testify. Mr. Washington used his position as an attorney and his understanding of the law to deliberately harm others, stated Assistant District Attorney Regina Thompson during the arraignment. He specifically targeted vulnerable men, exploited their fears, and showed complete disregard for the health and lives of their families. Derek's appearance in court shocked many who knew him. Gone were the designer suits and confident smile. He seemed smaller somehow, dressed in orange prison scrubs, his eyes downcast as the charges were read. Not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect, his public defender entered his plea. The defense would later argue that Derek's actions stemmed from untreated depression and internalized homophobia, claiming he was not mentally competent when he knowingly exposed others to HIV. But the prosecution had a powerful piece of evidence: Derek's personal journal, found during the search of his apartment. In it, he detailed his conquests with clinical precision, including strategies for identifying potential targets and maintaining their silence. Found another one today. Read one entry from March 2023. James M. Classic case. Successful, married, probably hasn't admitted to himself he's gay. Wife's pregnant, so he's especially vulnerable right now. Should be easy to keep him quiet. On October 15th, while Derek was appearing in court, Maya went into labor at UCSF Medical Center. After a difficult 18-hour delivery, Destiny Hope Morgan came into the world, healthy, HIV negative, and perfect in every way. The moment they put her in my arms, Maya recalled, all the darkness of the past months just lifted. She was worth everything I'd been through. James, out on bail awaiting his own trial, wasn't allowed at the hospital due to a restraining order. He sent flowers and a note, "I'm sorry," written 100 times on a single page. Maya's recovery room is filled with family and friends, celebrating new life in the face of betrayal. Her students made crayon drawings of Mrs. Morgan and baby, decorating the hospital walls with innocent love. "That's when I knew we'd be okay," said Angela, watching her sister nurse the baby. Maya was already thinking about how to turn this pain into purpose. In December 2023, Derek Washington accepted a plea deal. He would serve 15 years in state prison, register as a sex offender, and permanently surrender his law license. In exchange, he provided prosecutors with information about other potential victims across multiple states. James Morgan's case proved more complex. While he had continued sexual relations with Maya after his diagnosis without disclosure, a felony in California, his immediate cooperation with authorities and obvious remorse worked in his favor. Mr. Morgan's actions were inexcusable, his attorney stated, but they stemmed from fear and shame rather than malicious intent. He has accepted responsibility and wants to make amends. In February 2024, James pleaded guilty to reduced charges. He received 5 years probation, mandatory counseling, and was ordered to pay for Maya's lifetime medical expenses. The divorce was finalized the same month. "I know people think I got off easy," James said after sentencing, "but I lost everything that mattered: my wife, my daughter, my self-respect. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for what I did." Maya focused on rebuilding her life. She returned to teaching, now incorporating age-appropriate lessons about honesty and personal safety into her kindergarten curriculum. She also began speaking at HIV awareness events, particularly focusing on women who might not think they're at risk. "My story isn't unique," she would tell audiences, "but it shouldn't be anyone's story. We need to talk about HIV testing, about being honest with our partners, about creating spaces where people can be their authentic selves without fear." By spring 2024, the case had sparked significant changes in San Francisco's legal and medical communities. The city's Bar Association implemented mandatory ethics training, specifically addressing attorney-client relationships and HIV disclosure laws. Several prominent law firms established anonymous reporting systems for sexual misconduct. The health department launched a campaign targeting professional African-American communities, addressing both HIV testing and the specific challenges faced by closeted individuals. The Morgan Washington case forced us to confront several uncomfortable truths, said Dr. James Wilson, Director of Public Health. We had to acknowledge that our outreach wasn't reaching everyone at risk, particularly in communities where sexuality remains taboo. Meanwhile, baby Destiny thrived. Despite the circumstances of her birth, she became a symbol of hope and resilience in their community. Maya started a blog documenting their journey, which quickly gained followers nationwide. "Dear Destiny," one popular post began, "Today you turn 6 months old. Someday you'll learn the truth about how you came into this world. But what I want you to know first is that you saved me. Every smile, every milestone reminds me that joy can grow even in life's darkest soil." The blog attracted attention from other women in similar situations. Maya began receiving messages from across the country. Wives discovering their husbands' secret lives, mothers worried about their children's HIV status, women struggling to rebuild trust after betrayal. There's this assumption that it can't happen to you if you're educated, successful, in a seemingly stable marriage, Maya explained during a support group session. But HIV doesn't care about your degrees or your zip code, and neither does betrayal. In prison, Derek Washington's story took another turn. He was diagnosed with AIDS-related lymphoma in April 2024. The disease, which might have been preventable with proper medical care, had progressed significantly while he was in hiding. Even at the end, he was manipulative, said his former cellmate. Tried to use his illness to get sympathy, to reduce his sentence, but he never showed real remorse for what he did to those families. Derek died in prison in June 2024, leaving behind a final letter addressed to his victims. The letter, rather than offering apologies, attempted to justify his actions as a response to society's homophobia. He couldn't accept responsibility even in death, James commented when told about the letter. But his death forced me to face some hard truths about myself. I can't blame him for my choices. I chose to live a lie, to betray my wife, to put her and our baby at risk. James entered intensive therapy, finally confronting his sexuality and the internalized homophobia that had shaped his decisions. He began speaking at HIV prevention workshops, particularly targeting men on the down low. "I'm not proud of my story," he would tell audiences, "but if it helps one person make better choices, choose honesty over fear, then maybe I can begin to make amends." Maya's work with HIV awareness expanded. She partnered with local churches to create safe spaces for discussions about sexual health and relationships. Her kindergarten class became known for its truth circles, where children could practice being honest about difficult feelings. "Morgan taught us that everybody has secrets," said one of her students, "but some secrets can make you sick. It's better to tell the truth and get help." By summer 2024, Maya had started dating again, carefully this time. Her new partner, Michael, was a widowed father she met through church. He approached her story with compassion and understanding, getting tested before their relationship became intimate. "Michael showed me that trust is still possible," Maya shared, "but it has to be built on complete honesty from the beginning." As the one-year anniversary of Maya's HIV diagnosis approached, San Francisco Magazine published a comprehensive article titled "Betrayal in the Bay: How One Case Changed a Community." The piece examined not just the criminal aspects, but the broader societal issues the case had exposed. "The Morgan Washington case became a watershed moment," wrote journalist Tamara Johnson. "It forced conversations about healthcare access, sexual identity, and the particular vulnerabilities of professional African American communities, where appearance often masks deep struggles." The article revealed new details about Derek Washington's past. Interviews with his ex-wife in Atlanta painted a picture of a deeply troubled man who had spent his entire life crafting perfect facades to hide his truth. Derek was obsessed with success, with maintaining this image of Black excellence, his ex-wife shared. He saw his HIV diagnosis as a crack in that perfect surface, and instead of dealing with it honestly, he turned it into a weapon. The ripple effects of the case continued to spread. Several major law firms in San Francisco implemented mandatory HIV testing as part of their annual health screenings. The California Bar Association began requiring courses on ethical sexual conduct between attorneys and clients. James Morgan's development company, now under new management, created a foundation supporting HIV education and testing in African American communities. Though he no longer had any control over the company, they kept his name on the foundation as a reminder. "The James Morgan Foundation isn't about redemption," the new CEO explained. "It's about acknowledging that even successful, educated people can make devastating choices when they're living in fear. We want to create spaces where that fear doesn't exist." Maya's life took unexpected turns. Her blog evolved into a book deal, Finding Destiny: A Mother's Journey Through Betrayal to Grace. The memoir became a surprise bestseller, praised for its honest portrayal of both pain and healing. "I didn't write it to shame James or to get revenge," Maya explained at a book signing. "I wrote it because somewhere right now, another woman is sitting in a doctor's office, getting news that will shatter her world. I want her to know she's not alone." Destiny's first birthday party in October 2024 became a celebration of survival. The backyard of Maya's new home, filled with supporters who had become family over the past year. medical staff, support group members, students' parents, church friends. Looking at all these people, Maya told her sister Angela, watching Destiny smash her cake, I realized that sometimes you have to lose your old life to find your real one. James attended the party briefly, dropping off a gift and staying just long enough to hold his daughter for a few supervised minutes. The interaction was awkward but civil, a new normal they were all learning to navigate. I miss who we were, James admitted in a counseling session later that week. But Maya and Destiny deserve better than what I could give them while living a lie. Sometimes love means letting go. The case's impact on the legal system proved lasting. By late 2024, prosecutors across California were using the Washington precedent to pursue similar cases involving HIV non-disclosure, particularly those involving power dynamics between professionals. The Morgan Washington case gave us a framework, explained District Attorney Monica Taylor. It showed that these aren't just personal betrayals, they're serious crimes with far-reaching consequences. In December 2024, Maya received unexpected news. Her HIV had become undetectable. While she would need to continue treatment indefinitely, her doctor was optimistic about her long-term health. That's when I finally allowed myself to cry, Maya recalled. Not from sadness this time, but because I realized I'd spent so long being a survivor that I'd forgotten how to just live. It was time to start living again. As 2024 drew to a close, Maya sat in her classroom after hours, preparing for a new semester. The walls were decorated with her students' artwork, including a special corner dedicated to family pictures, drawings showing all kinds of different family structures. Children understand more than we think, Maya reflected. They know families can change, that love can look different ways, that telling the truth matters even when it's hard. Her work had expanded beyond the classroom. The support group she started now had chapters in 5 Bay Area cities, helping women navigate similar situations. They called themselves Phoenix Rising, symbolizing rebirth from the ashes of betrayal. James, continuing his therapy, had finally come out publicly. He started working with LGBTQ+ youth organizations, sharing his story as a cautionary tale about the cost of living in denial. I lost everything trying to be who others wanted me to be, he would tell them. Your truth might be hard for some people to accept, but living a lie will destroy not just you, but everyone who loves you. The legal aftermath of the case continued to evolve. The California legislature began considering the Maya Morgan Act, which would strengthen penalties for knowingly exposing others to HIV and provide additional protections for affected families. This isn't about criminalizing HIV status, explained State Senator Patricia Chen, the bill's sponsor. It's about addressing the intentional abuse of trust and power that we saw in the Washington case. Derek Washington's death had sparked its own conversations. His journal, released as part of the public record, revealed a pattern of self-loathing and internalized homophobia that mental health professionals saw as tragically common. Derek's writings show us how dangerous shame can be, said Dr. Marcus Johnson, who studied the case. When we force people to hide who they are, some will turn that pain outward, hurting others to feel some sense of control. Destiny, now 14 months old, was thriving. She had her mother's resilient spirit and, somehow, an innate ability to bring joy to difficult situations. Maya often found strength in her daughter's innocent perspective on life. She doesn't see the world through the lens of our trauma, Maya wrote in her final blog post. To her, every day is new, every person is a potential friend, every moment holds possibility. She's teaching me how to trust again. Michael, Maya's new partner, had become a steady presence in their lives. His own experience as a widowed father gave him a unique understanding of how to navigate complicated family dynamics. We're writing our own story, Maya explained. One where honesty is non-negotiable, where hard conversations happen before they become devastating ones, where love doesn't require hiding. The medical community continued studying the case. UCSF Medical Center used it in their training programs, teaching healthcare providers to look beyond surface appearances when assessing HIV risk. The Morgan case reminded us that risk factors aren't always obvious, said Dr. Chen. We need to move past stereotypes and assumptions in healthcare especially in communities where stigma creates barriers to honest discussion. As New Year's Eve 2024 approached, Maya hosted a different kind of gathering, a truth party where friends and family shared their authentic stories, fears, and hopes. The event became a model for similar gatherings across the country. A year ago, I thought my life was over, Maya told the group. Now I understand it was just the beginning. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can lead you to your true purpose. James attended briefly, bringing Destiny a gift and sharing a moment of peaceful co-parenting with Maya. Their interaction demonstrated how healing was possible, even if reconciliation wasn't. We're not victims of our story anymore, Maya concluded. We're authors of a new one. And while I wouldn't have chosen this path, I'm grateful for where it's led us. To truth, to purpose, and most importantly, to freedom.